Hey everyone, this is Jonathan Goss, the author of the Heavenly Realms series, and I really just wanted to do a quick video on something that I come back to fairly often. I'm the author of these books, which you can find on Amazon, Heavenly Realms series. They're a series of epic Christian fantasy war fiction, wars between the angels, stuff like that. Anyways, it's not what I want to talk to you about, but would be remiss if I didn't shamelessly promote, although they do play into things a little bit here. The title of this video is Testimony on Faith, which is something I struggle with a lot, something that I think a lot of us struggle with. But I wanted to just give a quick anecdote on this. I grew up in a very stable, comfortable, upper middle class Christian household. Great family, great parents, great siblings, good friends. And anyways, life was always very easy, you know. And then one day, when I was, I don't know, probably 24, maybe 23 or 24, I decided that I wanted to join the Marines. And I had just kind of started to enter into the grieving process over having my heart broken by the first girl I'd ever loved. As most of you probably have experienced something like. And it's my Sasquatch mug, by the way, that I don't know if you could see it because of the glare. Let's see. There he is. There's Sasquatch. My younger brother got this for me when he was on vacation. It's very cool. Thank you, Cameron. Anyways, at 24 in 2006, or maybe it was 23 in 2005, I can't remember at this point, I wanted to join the Marines. I didn't know what I was doing in life. I didn't know where I was going. I was still neck deep in writing this book. I think I had finished like the first or second draft at that point. It was still much larger than this, but didn't have a real education beyond high school. Didn't really have any job skills or anything like that. And so I wanted to be a Marine. And I've always been very drawn to warrior culture, but I always just had my head in the comfortable civilian clouds and never really seriously considered it until I no longer had a girl to chase after. And so I'll make this quick. I tried joining the Marines from 2000, I think probably 2006 or 7, all the way up through 2011. And I did everything I could. I think I really started earnestly applying to recruiter stations in about 2008. I took a long time off to just run, because I'm not a natural runner, and to work out and get in shape, because I was already behind the power curve because I was a little older. So anyways, long story short, I tried until I was too old to get into the Marines. I tried until I was about to turn 29. You have to have your boots on the yellow footprints by your 29th birthday at Parris Island in order to get in under the threshold without an age waiver. And I tried and tried. I went to 3 different recruiting offices until basically I was too old. And every time I had a bunch of things going against me. I had ADHD when I was younger. I had just gotten out of major depression, the girl, and I was in therapy for that depression. I didn't take medicine for my ADHD, but weirdly enough, all that stuff was not that big of a deal. What ended up being a big deal for the doctors at MEPS was the fact that when I was 2 years old, I had what's called a colon resection surgery. which is where you have your small intestine. There's a bad section of pipe. So the doctors go in, they cut it out, and they stitch up the good parts, and off you go. Well, apparently, in this process, or this procedure is called a duhamel pull-through. The DoD classifies it as a colon resection surgery. And that is what they call a permanent DQ, or a permanent disqualifier. So I needed a waiver for that. So I kept trying and I kept trying. I went to the branch in the recruiting office first in 100 Oaks up in Nashville. And then I tried there for a year or two. And then I tried the one in Brentwood, the recruiting station there. And then I eventually, and they never would let me get further than the initial process. I finally went all the way to the one in Murfreesboro, where under Staff Sergeant Dallas Mason, I believe was his name, super good dude, Californian, weirdly enough. I was actually able to get to MEPS, and I went through the MEPS process. I scored really well. There was no other issue, but for some reason, the doctors, I can't remember what they're called, the HMS or the head Navy corpsmen or surgeons, I think they're stationed up in New York. They kept coming back and saying, like, no, you're disqualified because of this surgery that you had at 2 years old, this colon resection surgery. That's a permanent disqualifier. I had even, during this process at one point in 2010, I had voluntarily gone to a gastroenterologist and had a colonoscopy done in order to get a letter of recommendation. And I had letters of recommendation from everybody, from my employers. I had references from previous employers, family, friends. I had letters of recommendation from my psychiatrist and my psychologist, back when I was depressed and when I was on antidepressants. I actually found out that you have to stop taking your antidepressants. You have to be completely off your meds 6 months before they'll let you join. So I quit cold turkey, and I was taking upwards of 1,000 milligrams of antidepressants a day up until 2008 when I learned that part of it. And then, so I went cold turkey, and my psychologist or my psychiatrist, Judy Aiken, she looked at me with like these, saucer eyes, and she was like, "I'm amazed you haven't had a grand mal seizure yet." But I didn't, at least not that I know of, unless I had it in my sleep. And so anyways, I jumped through all these hoops. I ran, I did pull-ups, I did push-ups, I did every kind of workout I could think of to get in shape. I spent 9 to 10 months just running with a mentor friend of mine, Bob Williams, just to get up to par, to compensate for my lack of inherent physicality and also to compensate for being older. And so anyways, all that prep, letter of recommendation from the gastroenterologist who performed the colonoscopy, which, by the way, sucked. Like, the prep for that was awful. He even signed off for it and said I was good to go, clean bill of health, I'm fine. I had never had any major issues with the ramifications from that duhamel pull through, as far as my GI tract goes, except for like you wrestle with like mild constipation, so you just kind of have to be mindful of what you eat. So anyways, I went through as many things as I could. In fact, the night that before I was supposed to go to MEPS, my recruiter called me at about 6 p.m. and said, "Hey, the command headquarters, the recruiter HQ came back and said that they've canceled your application, that you can't go." And I thought, you got to be kidding me! Like, I already have my bag packed, and all I wanted, by the way, was to be infantry. Just like every other dude who wants to join the Marines, for the most part, I just wanted to be a door kicker, a rifleman. That's all I wanted. I wanted to be this guy back here, yeah, maybe without the long hair. But anyways, so I asked him, okay, well, what can I do? And he said, well, if you can get a hold of the command staff at the recruiter headquarters, you might be able to talk to them. And so he wouldn't give me the number. Because he can't, but I was able to find it. It's not that hard. You just Google it. So I called up and I talked to 2 Marine captains about this, about like, why did you cancel my application? I had a grandfather in the Air Force, a father and an uncle who were in the Army who volunteered during Vietnam. Thank God they were never deployed, but they still served. I would like to serve. I've only ever wanted to be a Marine infantryman. This is all I want. My test scores are good. Everything's good. I got letters of recommendation from all these doctors. I'm good. Let me go at least to MEPS. And so they eventually said, okay, you know what? Fair enough. They were kind of mad at me that I found their number, but I still did. And they sent me off to MEPS. So I go to MEPS, I do all my stuff, and I'm fine. Everything checks out. I score really well on like their it's not the ASVAB, but it's basically their proficiency test, whatever it's called. I can't remember. But it's the Marines. Like, who cares? It's like, can you pick out the right color crayon to eat? Anyways, so and it really was all I wanted at that point. And I went to MEPS, and they still ended up saying no. I didn't hear back from my recruiter for 2 weeks, which, as an adult, silence speaks volumes. And that, like, if you don't hear back from somebody after a week or so, that kind of tells you what you need to know. So all that to say, it was very embittering and very heartbreaking and angering and frustrating to go through all of these hoops over a period of 3-4 years at least. And this desire, I read all these books, I watched all these documentaries, I talked to all these great people in my life who had served in the military, both in the Marines and in other branches. And it seemed like the only path that I really had, that I really wanted to go on. And it fell through. I tried writing, like, I thought maybe I could write my congressman, but that only really helps if you have like a criminal record. It doesn't help with medical stuff. I did everything I could. I talked to chief surgeons in New York. I talked to Marine captains. I talked to retired people. I mean, I did everything I could. I was like, I even think I was on like the Leatherneck forums trying to find people to reach out to. Nothing happened. Nothing worked. It never manifested. And I was not able to be in the military. I was not able to be a Marine. And it really stung. And I spent a few years after that pursuing other things kind of half-heartedly. Like, I thought maybe I could be a corpsman in the Navy and go greenside. And that way, if I couldn't be a Marine, I could at least fight with the Marines and patch them up and, still be somebody attached to the Marines. I thought maybe I could do Army, but every step of the way, there was always something that kept me from making that happen. But where the whole, like, faith, I believe, oh Lord, help thou my unbelief, comes in. And it's like one thing that I fall back on is less than a year after this happened, after I got rejected by the Marines, rejected by the DOD, effectively told by the entire military, no, we don't want you because of this surgery you had, even though I'm sitting here saying I'm 28, 30, 31 years old. I've never had any issue. Why won't you guys let me join? Like, I'm in good shape. I was in much better shape than I am now. It makes no sense. Well, in 2012, I had, and again, this is less than a year after I was told no by the Marines, and very upset about it and very hurt by it and lost as a result, and mad at God, of course, because we all get mad at God about stuff like that. Just, I think, instinctively, gut reaction. I actually did have a small bowel obstruction less than a year after they told me no. And I had to be in Williamson Medical for, I think, 4 days. And the only two options were they can either shove an NG tube up your nose and down into your stomach and effectively pump your stomach to relieve the pressure, or they could go in and operate. And what happens with a small bowel obstruction is something happens to where your small intestine twists like a balloon animal. And when that twist happens, it creates a blockage to where nothing can pass through. And so everything on the back just builds up and builds up, and it builds up pressure. And it gets steadily worse. And over the course of about 12 hours before I went to the hospital, it was excruciating. I have never had pain like that. in my life, and you can't escape it because it's your torso, you know. So anyways, and that actually was caused by the surgery that I had when I was little. The doctors say that there's nothing I could have done lifestyle or diet wise to cause or prevent that from happening. It's the adhesions in your small intestine, the scar tissue from where they operated on me when I was little, can, I guess, calcify the tissue in a way that can create a resistance pocket that causes that to twist. And it's totally random. Like, some people have a dozen of them a year, which I can't imagine. So they can either, the only two options are they can either pump your stomach or they can go in and operate. And the trouble with operating is if they go in and operate, you don't want that, because eventually that creates more scar tissue, which can create more small bowel obstructions in the future. And that's not good. That's just, digging the hole even deeper. So anyways, I spent 4 days in Williamson Medical having my stomach pumped for no reason. I still to this day don't know what caused it, but because I don't drink a lot, I don't do any drugs, I don't live a crazy lifestyle or anything, and I'm not contorting myself, in a gymnasium somewhere. So I don't know, but all that to say, if I had gotten into the Marines, if I had gone to Parris Island, if I had gone to not AIT, but whatever the SOI, School of Infantry, if I had pursued that, there's a good chance that if they would not have life flighted me back to a surgery center and done something about it, within 24 hours, my small intestine would have ruptured and I would have died. So when I think about all the things that have gone on, when I take the 30,000-foot view of that scenario and I see how much I wanted to be a Marine and how much I struggled to be a Marine and how much I researched and prepped and worked and how many different recruiters I went to and how many different people I called and letters of recommendation I got only to have it die, when I think about that, I have to think, what? Ultimately, that was probably God. It really probably was. That was probably God protecting me. No, I mean, you could chalk it up to fate. You could chalk it up to chance. You could chalk it up to statistical anomaly. I don't know, whatever. What I've found is when it comes to faith, it does you no more harm to believe than it does to not believe. And in a way, it probably does you more harm to not believe than it does to believe. And so there's a peace that comes from that. And so anyways, life went on. I kept working, and I eventually wrote and published, these books. And these, they don't sell really well, but this is probably my legacy. Not married, no kids. This is sort of my life doing these books. And I think maybe that was the reason, maybe God kept me from joining the Marines, because if I did join, I could have died. Not in combat, not in an IED, not even in a training accident, just because of this random event that seemed to be hanging over me like a sword of Damocles, like a banhammer just looming over me, ready to whack-a-mole my plans. There's that phrase, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. I think that's a little cynical, but it is kind of funny. So anyways, if you're facing a lot of walls, if you're facing a lot of failures, if you're facing a lot of disappointments, because we all have disappointment with life, we all have disappointment with God, and look, there are still things about God that I don't get, that I don't understand. I mean, I watched my mom die of leukemia very suddenly at 59 years old, and it to this day is still traumatizing. I probably dream about her every night, just about, and it's really tough. And I don't blame anybody for being mad at God about that sort of thing. I would be a hypocrite if I told you I wasn't mad about that, because it's so hard to square. But what sort of eases my intellect and tells me just to sort of rein back a little bit and just ease off, Ripley, is when I think about my own life with trying so hard to get into the Marines, not being able to, despite all my efforts, and then having this medical emergency happen less than a year later, that if I were in the Marines, it would have killed me. And I think, okay, well, was God preserving me for something? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I do like to think that no matter how it plays out, whether good or bad, we all are part of the plan. We're all part of the intricate network and the bayou tapestry of the universe, and that God kind of has. And so if you're going through a lot of struggles, if you're having a really hard time squaring things away, just know that maybe there's a reason for that. That verse from the New Testament, I believe, "O Lord, help thou my unbelief," really kind of, I should probably have a t-shirt made with that on it, or a tattoo, but I kind of don't want to get tattoos, even though I have one. Sins of youth, I guess. But if you're having stuff like that go on in your life, just know that there probably is a reason for it, and maybe God's looking out for you, and maybe it's a one step back, two steps forward thing, and you don't know what's over the horizon. You don't know what God has for you. You don't know, I mean, if that had happened, I never would have written or never would have finished and published these for whatever they're worth, Maybe that's the reason. Maybe not. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's just you or me intersecting somebody else's life who's going to have an even greater impact on the world. I mean, we all like to think that we're the hero of our own story, but we are the side characters of everybody else's story. There's a lot to that I think is worth taking into account and balancing out. And I'm by no means a great Christian. I'm certainly not a good Christian. I have my faults and my angers and my prejudices and my wraths and my sins and my failures and temptations, just like everybody else. But I can't help but think that maybe what happened and the disappointment and failure that happened with the Marines had to happen to keep me alive to do something on the back end. I have no idea what that is, and maybe it's not my place. I like to think that it's the novels, the Heavenly Realms novels, but maybe not. Maybe it's something else. Who knows? So if you're going through those struggles, just remember two things. One, you may not know, and maybe you're not supposed to know. That's the humility of wisdom. And two, faith is, I believe, O Lord, help thou my unbelief. We put a lot of stock in the intellect. And honestly, I don't think that's the wisest move a lot of times. I was an atheist for 5 years because I put too much stock in my own intellect instead of having the humility to back off and think, there are things at work that are greater than me. And I'm not the bee's knees. I can't figure everything out. I failed college algebra twice. So, so maybe there's something to that. I don't know. But that's all I wanted. I just wanted to tell you that story. I'm sorry it took 24 minutes to do it, but hopefully, if you're going through anything in life, try not to be bitter about it. Try to hold out faith and hope that maybe whatever is happening, there's a reason for it, and there's something better on the back end, no matter what that is. And I say that as someone who has watched terrible things happen to good people whom I love and miss every day. So life is not perfect. It's far from it. But I think God is perfect. And I thank Jesus for it every day, because I think without that, man, I've been there, and it's lonely and it's cold and it's not fun. So that's all I wanted. Just, I believe, help thou my unbelief. Whatever trials and tribulations you're going through, maybe there's a good reason for it, and try not to get too bitter about it, because maybe there's something better on the back end, and maybe you're being protected from a bad fate in service to a better one. So anyways, that's all. All right. I'll see you guys later. Have a good night. Take care. Bye-bye.